Hello, once again, my vigilant viewers. I am pretty sure the title might have intrigued you. So please know this. This video will have spoilers for Kung Fu Panda 2. And with that, let's talk about what you clicked on this video for. If you aren't sure who Jordan Peterson is, let me explain. Jordan Peterson is a Canadian psychologist and professor known for his work on clinical psychology and his intellectual views on culture and societal issues. He gained widespread attention and through his critique of political correctness and his defense of free speech, particularly regarding gender identity. Peterson is also really known as the author for several books sharing his philosophy, including the all too familiar 12 Rules for Life, which combines psychological principles with philosophical advice for development and navigating the challenges of this obstacle course we call life. His work often revolves around themes of individual responsibility, the meaning of life, and the interplay between order and chaos.
It's not okay for you to be a weak loser. It's not okay. And the reason it's not okay is because you could be way more than that. And it's a crime, an ethical crime, for you to allow all that necessary potential to go to waste.
Do you know who Jordan Peterson is? You're probably already grabbing your popcorn and setting in for some deep introspective analysis with an animated panda. Now, that leads us to another question. What does Kung Fu Panda 2 have to do with Jordan Peterson? Well, consider this scene. Po, seeking guidance, asks Master Shifu how one finds inner peace. And Shifu's answer is pretty telling.
Some choose to meditate for 50 years in a cave just like this, without the slightest taste of food or water. Or some find it through pain and suffering, as I did. Po, the day you were chosen as Dragon Warrior was the worst day of my life. By far, nothing else came close. It was the worst, most painful, mind-destroying, horrible moment I have ever experienced. But once I realized the problem was not you, but within me, I found inner peace.
Judging by this, it seems like peace does not come from avoiding pain, but confronting it and learning it, especially from within. When Shifu acknowledges that the day Po became the Dragon Warrior, it was one of the most difficult days of his life. But it wasn't Po that was the problem. Rather, it was something unresolved within himself. This mirrors Peterson's argument that we are all our own greatest obstacles, and that true peace can be achieved through honest self-reflection.
Blaming others for your problems is a complete waste of time. When you do that, you don't learn anything. You can't grow and you can't mature. Thus, you can't make your life better. Why? Because other people aren't the problem. You're the problem. You can't change other people, but you can change yourself.
The idea of personal responsibility is central to Peterson's philosophy. He often critiques modern society to He often critiques modern society and its tendency to externalize blame, whether towards societal structures, authority figures, or one's own path.
You know, the idea that in some sense you're an eternal victim. Well, there's a truth in that, given that nature is conspiring to destroy you and will be successful in the end, that you're undermined by your own society at the same time you're buttressed by it, and that you're a target of your own malevolence and that of others. I mean, so there's a triad of tragic and malevolent forces that are aimed directly at your heart, and that's always the case. But to not take responsibility for that and to attribute to that to a cosmic injustice or a sociological injustice in some sense that's aimed particularly at you, that's somehow the fault of others, is to miss the great adventure of your life. In that adoption of that adventurous mode of being, there's a deep meaning to be found. Right? A meaning maybe that transcends just you, that involves your family and that involves your community and maybe even the destiny of humanity itself.
Instead, he argues that real growth comes from confronting our own failings and limitations. And you can see that in the movie. If you've seen the movie, you know that Poe is being confronted with PTSD flashbacks of his past long forgotten, and a villain that not only threatens to destroy Kung Fu, but also was there when his parents were killed. Both Poe and Shen are avoiding their emotional pain, but in very different ways. Poe by projecting strength and avoiding his trauma, and Shen by externalizing his lack of parental love into a desire for power. Peterson would argue that both these characters are making the same fundamental mistake. They're trying to cover up deep psychological wounds with surface level solutions.
It's not a matter of accepting some externally imposed morality. It's a dialogue with your own conscience. What are you doing that's wrong from your own perspective? What could you put right now?
Akin to putting a band-aid on a severed leg. To further illustrate this, let's dive into Shen's character arc, shall we? Shen, the villain of the story, embodies the consequences of unaddressed trauma. His backstory reveals how his parents' rejection and his own feelings of inadequacy drove him to seek validation through power and control. In the film, we see him resort to extremely destructive means to assert his dominance, believing it'll make things right. Peterson often emphasizes that individuals who fail to confront their own moral failings, regardless the cause, can easily spiral into nihilism, adopting destructive behaviors and using it as a misguided attempt to find meaning.
It's much easier and much more gratifying to your basest desires to blame someone else for your misery. Consider the youthful activist making a statement against the corrupt capitalist system by smashing in the storefront of a local business. What has he done other than to bring harm to people who have nothing to do with his real problems? The guilt, doubt, and shame he will inevitably feel in consequence will have to be suppressed so his beliefs can remain unchanged. The problem with the pursuit of happiness is that when life's storms come along, happiness disappears, and then you're left with nothing. And so you need to pursue something that's deeper than happiness. And if happiness comes along, well then, hooray for you. You don't want to despise it because it's fleeting, but it's much better to pursue things that are meaningful than things that make you happy.
And Shen's pursuit of power is a perfect example of this, as it's all rooted in denial. Contrast Poe's journey illustrates the potential for redemption through exceptions and growth.
Perhaps you do remember.
What? It's just a stupid nightmare.
Nightmare or memory?
As Poe confronts his own painful memories, particularly regarding his biological parents, it conflicts with his identity as a warrior, and thus he embarks on a path towards self actualization. But that journey concludes when he finally realizes that his biggest obstacle isn't Shen, but rather himself. This pivotal transformation resonates with Peterson's assertion that meaning is often found on the other side of suffering. Poe's journey, he teaches us rather than shying away from our fears and pain, we should confront them head on, transforming our suffering into strength. I mean, this part where the soothsayer tells Poe she might as well have been quoting Jordan Peterson. You know what I'm saying? So, what can we take away from all this intersection of Kung Fu Panda 2 and Peterson's philosophy? First, it is crucial to recognize that our own struggles stem from within. Second, embracing our past with all its pain and complexity can lead to profound personal growth. Post trauma reminds us that it's only by facing our suffering and traumas that we can transform them into our greatest strength. And finally, both Poe and Shen serve as reminders that we must be vigilant about the narratives we construct around our pain. Are we seeking to cover it up with power? Or are we more willing to confront them head on and allow it to guide us to true fulfillment and purpose? Thank you for joining me on this beloved exploration of an anime film through psychological insight. So, to end, we've learned a lot today. Kung Fu Panda is basically an animated master class on self actualization, and I can now finally cross the next beloved family movie to a Canadian psychologist off my bucket list. Until next time, stay vigilant.